Welcome to The Switch, not another podcast, hosted by Kristina Hagström Ilevska. The Switch is a collaboration between Baseload Capital, DNB and Energy Disruptors, aiming to accelerate the green transition. We want our podcast to be a central hub for knowledge exchange within the fields of renewables and green transition.
Welcome to The Switch in our brand new studio. Isn't that worth an applause?
It is.
I'm sitting here with a bunch of really intelligent and good people, and we together are going to produce the podcast, The Switch. And why is it not another podcast?
Because you're going to join us on this switch, our journey together.
Our journey.
Yeah.
We're switching the people and making them tipping over to the right side.
That's right.
What we are hoping to achieve is to educate you, to entertain you within the questions of leadership, activism, and climate questions, to make sure that you have the right information so that you can make the switch together with us. Emil, what are you looking forward to today?
I know that we have a really interesting guest, and I'm so looking forward to getting her on the show.
Me too. I know that she's been shaking hands with Barack Obama.
Who wouldn't want to do that?
Who wouldn't want to do that? And
Yeah.
who wouldn't want to interview her?
Yeah. Of course. And we are today.
Definitely. She is a really known moderator, and I'm a bit nervous because she's like a global moderator out there. So I just hope that I get one question which she hasn't gotten before. So I hope that we prepared right. Did we do that?
I hope so.
I hope so.
I hope so,
Yeah,
too.
definitely. I am guessing that you are interested in hearing a bit more about what she is and who she is and what she's done. So let's check her out.
She has a bias for pragmatism and an insatiable belief everyone was born to lead. Named one of Australia's 100 most influential women, she was Richard Branson's nominee for Future Game Changers and is one of the world's most exciting young leaders. When she's not on stage interviewing the likes of Barack and Michelle Obama, she's out advocating for social and economic inclusion because she believes if you walk past it, you tell the world it's okay. What drives this dynamic speaker, author, and disruption expert to push for positive change? And does she really believe we can all be part of the solution? We're about to find out on today's episode. Let's give a warm switch welcome to the tour de force that is Holly Ransom.
I am so happy to have Holly Ransom with us here today, and we are ready for you. But let me ask you a question. Are you really ready for us?
I am going to find out. Hey, Christina, I'm really excited to be with you. Thanks for the opportunity.
It was an obvious choice when we had the opportunity to pick you that you should be a part of this podcast because you're really making a difference out there.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And right back at you.
Yeah. But listen, do you know what we want to create here?
Tell me about it.
We want to create a podcast where you can actually even watch. It's not going to be a podcast. It's going to be just another podcast where we really want to go down to details and discussions about the real life stuff out there and how we can really make the switch in the world that we so much need. And we were talking a little bit that it really needs to be on the perspective where we don't have the bullshit. And where we don't have any mansplaining. So now, Holly, you're a woman. I don't know which word we should use there, but you know what mansplaining is, correct?
I do. I don't know if there's a female version of that word, though. So we'll definitely avoid the territory, though.
Yeah, good. Then we are in the same box here. So listen, let us really get down a bit to business here. You have written your first book. Congratulations on that, by the way.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
It's called The Leading Edge, and it's focused on the leadership that we need in the 2020s. So this is one of the reasons why we want you here today, because we really want to get to know a little bit more about that. So why don't you tell us a little bit about why did you decide to write this book?
Yeah, look, thank you for the question. And I was very fortunate to get to go and do some study. I spent the last 2 years, I just completed about 3 months ago, my master's in public policy. And while I was doing that study, I spent a lot of time focusing on leadership, and I was doing the kind of literature review of the library of leadership books. And one of the things that strikes you overwhelmingly, well, two things actually. One is you're still sort of blown away by some of the content we're teaching in this day and age. And just how it doesn't really feel that it's timely for the challenges that are facing us in 2021, like the pace of change that you're contending with in roles like you do as a change leader, the challenge around, needing to motivating and engage, this purpose-based storytelling, the ability to connect authentically as a leader. These new things just weren't really, when you looked at the leadership books, they weren't there. They weren't being taught in a way that was really accessible. And you can go, great, that's what I need for the challenge that's in front of me right now. The other thing that really struck me was
Sorry, Holly, I'm going to interrupt you there. Let me just go back. So what you're saying to me now is that you didn't find what you needed in the books. I mean, there are tons and tons and tons and tons of books out there about leadership. And you're telling me that you didn't find what you needed in those books. Is that correct?
No, you can find bits and pieces, but in terms of something that really gives you a kind of blueprint for the skills that you need as a leader right now, no. And I think the other thing that strikes you is there's a real lack of diversity in the people that are held up as examples of leaders. Oh. It's overwhelmingly men, and it's overwhelmingly men from a couple of different backgrounds. They're men from the military, they're male politicians, or they're male kind of elite sport coaches. And as you and I know, leadership looks a lot more diverse than that. And certainly leadership needs to look a lot more diverse than that in order to mobilize the volume of people that we need to make really serious progress on challenges like climate change, on being able to really drive forward on these complex challenges that are in front of us now. We know it takes more than one individual, one institution, one sector of society. So I really wanted to intentionally bring a lot more diverse voices. So the book's got like 60 case studies. There are 42 different sectors. There's equal representation of both genders. There's leaders in their 20s, there's leaders in their 80s, there's everything in between. Wow. And it was a real want to give a lot more people an example so that they could look at that and go, wow, if someone like me or if someone like that can be a leader, or if being a leader can look like that, maybe I can be one too.
So you mean that basically anyone could be able to read it? So if I give it to my mom, she will actually enjoy it in a sense?
Yeah, definitely. And I'm happy to send your mum a copy. I'd love to know what she thinks. But absolutely, anyone should be able to read it.
Yeah, but listen, we have our awesome producer, Emil, who's sitting in the room here. He's one of the younger generations. He's 25?
25, yeah.
So Holly, when he reads this book, what is he going to take away?
Well, I hope some of the tools that can help him with the goals and aspirations that he's got. I mean, I'm sure he's a driven individual. He's involved in a podcast like this, so he wants to shake up the conversations that we're having for the better. And really what I hope everyone will find in it is those practical tools for how they can be the change they want to see in the world. And the thing I want to clarify in that is one of the things I'm really intentional about is taking that responsibility back for change. I think a lot of times we go, that's above my pay grade, or that's someone else's responsibility. And we kind of give over the power and influence that each and every one of us has. Whether we're talking about leading in your family, whether we're talking about leading in your friendship group, whether we're talking about leading in your team at work, or maybe you do run an organization or a small business. But that is influential. That is leadership, the way that you make choices and decisions. And what I hope everyone can sort of see is the role that they play as a leader, because I truly believe everyone is capable of being a leader. And whether they choose to or not, everyone's exercising leadership for good or for worse every day. So this is really a toolkit on how we can do it better.
Can you give us a tease with one of the toolkits that you have? Is there any tool that you can give us that maybe all the listeners here can have a use of already today?
Yeah, well, given we're going to talk about it probably from a different angle, one of the ideas in the book that really seems to be resonating with a lot of people is so the first half of the book is all about managing self, and the second half and leading self, and the second half is all about leading others. And that whole premise, and until we can lead ourselves, we can't actually lead anyone else. And that's one of the patterns of the great leaders I've had the good fortune of interviewing, whether it's Barack Obama or Malcolm Gladwell and people like that. People always say, is there any pattern amongst these people? And the thing I would say overwhelmingly, both in the way they present their ideas and in the energy you actually, what it feels like to be in their presence, there's this incredible sense of clarity. They understand their purpose. They've interrogated what they're about. They know what they stand for. They know what they don't walk past. And there's an extraordinary power that comes with that. It's a really, it engenders a lot of confidence. You want to be around it. And there's a real kind of, clarity when they talk and communicate about their ideas. And so what I wanted to do in the first half was talk about leading self, second half leading others. One of the big ideas I think in leading self that seems to be getting a lot of interest is this idea of managing your energy, not managing your time, which is really interesting for a world of people. And I was certainly one of them that got brought up on the whole managing time philosophy, learning how to be productive and, divide your day into as many meetings as possible.
I mean,
and the argument,
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, you're feeling that? Exactly. And I just think whoever said life's a marathon and thought about time management was not leading in 2021, right?
Yeah.
Like the reality is life is more like a marathon of high interval training. Where you've got to have, this ability to do these rapid, intensive efforts and recover in these brief moments so you can go again. It's why we hear change fatigue and burnout all the time at the moment.
Holly, I think you just did the quote of the century here. So life is actually a bunch of intervals, correct? What did you say there?
Yeah, life is basically a bunch of high interval intensity training sessions where we've got to be able to do, rapid efforts. We're getting a project over the line. We're starting something. We've got a really challenging stakeholder, whatever. And then we've got to be able to find this recovery in these small, brief moments of time. And so this book is, one of the chapters is devoted to how do we learn from high performance athletes and from the world of doctors and medicine in what they're saying about this idea of managing energy. So put simply, all of us have a natural energy rhythm. We've all got a circadian rhythm. We have high energy peaks in the day naturally. We have low energy moments. Some of us are morning people, some of us are night owls.
Wait, I have to check this one. Let me see. So Emil, who are you? Are you the morning person or the evening person?
Absolutely the evening person.
Okay, so that's why you and I are emailing between 9 and 12 o'clock in the evening. Okay, so Holly, where are you?
I'm a morning person. Actually, I'm both ends of the day. I'm not so good in the afternoon, but I like late at night and I like early in the morning. So I'm a little bit of both. I'm a bit of a weird one. But the whole idea is then to be curious about that. So track it in yourself and then think about how do I match my energy to my activity? Good one. So what you do deserves the high energy peaks in your day? What of what you do does not deserve those high energy moments? So your creativity, your project planning, the key conversations you've got to have with really important people, you need to be on your A game. They need to happen in high energy moments. And so structuring your day and your week according to energy is one of the most profound changes you can make. And it sounds a little bit rah-rah perhaps to some, but at a basic level, it's as simple as becoming tuned in to when's my energy at highs and lows, what activity is most important for me to have high energy around, and how do I intentionally try and structure my days and weeks according to those energy troughs and highs. And the other thing I'd say is this really interesting body of work around what they're calling micro breaks. So sometimes often we let perfect be the enemy of the good.
Can you give me an example of a micro break?
Yeah, sure. So it's the idea of instead of saying, exercise to be beneficial has to be 60 minutes of running or a whole yoga class, or mindfulness has to be 20 minutes. The research is saying that's not right. To be able to change your physiology for the better, it can be as simple as getting up and going for a walk to the end of the street and back, getting up and doing 10 star jumps on the spot, doing 10 deep breaths. This idea that in those really small interventions, you can actually start to positively impact your own well-being. And we write a lot about the research that's pioneering this area. And I think that's enormously encouraging because for a lot of us, the busyness, the challenges we've got with all these competing demands, it can be really hard to find that time. And what I encourage people to think about is at a minimum, pick some circuit breakers, come up with these minimal, viable kind of energy hacks for yourself, and then be really deliberate about how you insert them into your day. And you won't recognize yourself in terms of the way you can change your energy levels.
Wow, I love that. We need to insert energy hacks. So I'll give you a way to think about it, but Emil, he won't have the time. So Emil, what's your absolute best energy hack of the day if you would just choose?
Oh, that's a tough question. I think my best energy hack would be to play some, what do you call it, ping pong.
Oh,
with my ping pong table at the office. I think a little bit of physical exercise.
Oh, well, good. Good. Holly, what's yours?
I've got a combination, but at the moment I'm doing a lot of the 10 deep breaths. I find that really helpful. And then I find rapid exercise really useful. So it can be as simple as chucking on a song and dancing around my living room. It can be as simple as, kind of getting and doing a few, getting up between Zoom calls that just seem never ending at the moment and doing a set of squats. Anything to just get the blood flowing, I find really valuable.
I'm really bad at these energy hacks, but I will steal one of them for you. So I will definitely steal the one with the dancing. High music and just dancing. Can you see? I see it in front of me. I'm just moving. I love it. Yeah. Good one.
Yeah.
Stolen. Consider it done. I will send you a movie when I'm doing it, okay?
Look forward to that.
We want to move on and do some more talking about climate topics as well. But I just want to summarize this one with the leadership questions and the book what we have here. Like, what would be the advice you give to the next generation who is actually embarking now on their leadership road?
I would say that your voice and contribution matter now. I devote a whole chapter of the book to this idea, but start before you think you're ready. I think so often, and it's certainly something, if you ask me what's something I believed about leadership 10 years ago that I don't believe now, 10 years ago I would have said at some point someone's going to miraculously, give me the keys to leadership, and at that point I will be able to lead. And I think what all of us know is that's not what leadership looks like, and we can't afford to wait. We need this generation to be leading and making a contribution now. So start where you are with what you have at this moment. Think about what you're passionate about in the world, the change you want to see, and then challenge yourself to go, what's one tiny bite-sized step I can take today in this 24 hours to start putting that into action? But please start now. The world needs you and it needs your leadership.
Wow. I will not say anything else than that, because I think that that's a super end quote for this topic, definitely. Before I move on, I have one question, which is a bit embarrassing to ask, really, but I need to ask it because otherwise I will be a bit, I will haunt myself. So out of all these world leaders that you've had, Barack Obama, Malcolm Gladwell, all of these people, who had the best handshake, really?
Ooh, that's an interesting question. I don't think anyone's ever asked me that. Do you know what? I cannot even recall. It's so not something I've really ever thought that much about in terms of what they're all like to meet. I remember Richard Branson, who we had on the Energy Disruptors stage. I'm sure we shook hands, but we actually danced our way to the couch together. So that was a little bit of a different entry versus a handshake. But I think probably the thing about all of them is I think one of them would stand out if they were particularly bad, but I think all of them must be good because it's not something that sticks in my memory.
They maybe have been like practicing the handshakes, you think?
They're probably pros, yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, okay. I was hoping to get like a big quote, to put out. This is the one man in the world with the best handshake. But I will linger on that. Maybe I'll ask you again sometimes. Who knows?
I'll pay more attention, I promise.
I'll do that. And we'll recap in a year, and then you'll tell me, okay?
Okay, done.
Done.
There you go.
Good. So the next segment we really want to go into are actually 3 questions which we're going to ask all our guests. And I'm very curious to see which one you will pick to answer here. So the 3 questions are, 1, tell us what you have done for the planet this week. 2, what's the most stupidest thing you've seen regarding climate action this week? And 3, so Bill Gates, he eats grapes all year around, and that's his guilty pleasure that no one else knows. But what's yours?
I feel like calling grapes a guilty pleasure is a real stretch. So that's interesting that counts as a guilty pleasure by Bill Gates. What have I done for the planet this week? We recycle in our household, so we've continued to do that. Our recycling went out last night. We're big believers on that. Okay. And then the other thing is we're developing some clothing with some of the work that I'm doing at the moment, and we're investing in and looking at options. We're in conversation at the moment with a couple of like algae-based ink providers, so we can move away from any kind of industrial involvement in and oil and gas involvement in our shirt production, so we can have an ethical producer on the actual cotton side of things, and then from a print and ink standpoint we can be entirely environmentally friendly. In fact, negative carbon in terms of the contribution actually makes back to the environment based on the providers we're talking to. So that's something I'm in negotiations and conversations around at the moment.
Wow, I look forward to that. I would definitely buy my next outfit if I can from there.
I'll let you know.
Oh, good. Great.
Wait. Christina, what have you done for the planet this week?
I'm doing the switch.
Of course you do.
Isn't that the best answer ever?
Yeah, it is.
I was so fast.
Yeah.
I kind of like that.
Oh, look, you're bringing the dancing in right now.
Yeah,
I love
it. It's, you have to have some fun in it. Oh, okay, awesome. Holly, let's move in a bit to the questions we have regarding climate. So you have a big stage. People are looking at you. You are an influencer in many ways, but we still struggle. And there are many people like you that have voices out there that are hearing. And as you said about the future leaders, to really take responsibility. But what can we do? How can we get more people interested in the future of energy and tackling this climate change issue? What's your thoughts about that?
Yeah, look, it's a great question, and I'm so glad we have a shared passion for that, because I think the more of us that are trying to do exactly this, hopefully the more successful we are collectively. Because I absolutely agree, we need to be not just preaching to the already converted, we've got to be converting more people each week to, enlisting in this cause of wanting to do their part to protect and preserve our planet. And it's something we've grappled with, Graham, my co-founder, and I, with Energy Disruptors since the very beginning. So Energy Disruptors, when we founded it a few years ago, was intended to try and disrupt the energy conference scene. Because when we looked at it, we went, there's a lot of people that are just talking to people like them. All the industry kind of segments itself. And so oil and gas talk to oil and gas, and the renewables sector get together and have a conversation. And we can even get more niche and specific than that, right? But we wanted everyone to be in one conversation. So there's an opportunity to listen. And I don't think there's necessarily enough listening going on. There's a lot of selective perception. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of disinformation and confusion. And so we wanted to create the opportunity for people to listen to informed experts and leaders on every dimension of the energy conversation, so we could have a really collaborative conversation, because I think that's really important. We need to break down the silos. And the second thing for us was we wanted to get some speakers outside the industry talking in. That's why people like Richard Branson and Malcolm Gladwell have come to our summits, because we wanted people who have, expertise and opinions, Richard on innovation, Malcolm, without a doubt, on kind of humankind and trust and relationships and how that all interplays, to actually put their perspective on the energy sector so all of us could collectively learn. But I think that those two things are really important. I think we've got to continue to try and help people understand why this conversation matters for them. We've got to connect it to their world, and we've got to connect via people that they already follow and listen to them into the conversation. Every time we talk to someone that doesn't come from the energy world, I hope a few more people come into the energy conversation by virtue of these different advocates and ambassadors. So I think the more diverse spokespeople we can have engaging in these conversations, the better, because hopefully every time it sort of broadens the net a little bit.
So your short answer is actually to diversify the ambassadors that are speaking about this.
Yep, and to break down the silos.
Okay, cool. But why? I mean, if I may, are you ready for this?
Bullshit.
If I may, this is something that we've been saying for so long, that we want to break the silos, we want people to talk each other, we want to be, but how come we are not further along this discussion than we are today? Because we're still in the silos.
Yeah, because we're not good enough at following through on the idea. I think there's a lot of good talk and well-intended, we can say this about anything. We're not further along on diversity inclusion as we should have been by now, right?
True.
There's a lot of people who have good intentions who are saying things that sound politically correct to say, but when rubber meets the road, people aren't making themselves uncomfortable in the name of a better tomorrow. And that's what it takes. It takes, even us as individuals sitting down and being open to conversation with people we wouldn't normally spend time around, who've got a different viewpoint. And it takes each of us doing that individually, so that when we gather in teams and in companies and in bigger conversations, we're better and more mindful of whose perspective we've got there and whose we don't. Yeah. So I think it's a challenge of implementation. We're not great at implementation.
Can it also be that we're not good at actually talking, in a sense? I mean, the world is so polarized. How can we get these silos broken? Because, I mean, if we're so polarized in our opinions, or actually if we're so bad at discussions in a really healthy way, like, what do we actually have to do in order to start listening and talking to each other for real?
Yeah, it's a really great question. And we've just done a series recently, because we couldn't obviously bring people together in person this year for Energy Disruptors, because the world is, in a really challenging spot. We launched a conversation series called Energy Trailblazers. And the question you've asked there, we had Seth Godin and Chris Voss and others who really delved into, and they talked a lot about how we've got to find a way of finding common ground. So stripping back what we think is very divergent views about the how, and actually getting to the why. So how do we have why? Because we want a world where our children and grandchildren are living on a healthy planet. That's not what the IPCC report tells us is going to be their reality at the moment. It's the why. You know, we care about air quality. We want to enjoy a quality of life. You know, although whatever it is that's stripping back and can help you find a shared understanding, because I think the big thing that drives the difference is the opinion on the how. A lot of people, I think, are actually agreed on the why. And then once we've built from an understanding of actually we're on the same page, and now let's find, to quote one of our guests from last week, a neutral fact base around what the options about how would mean, and then let's delve into the uncomfortable conversation. And there will be vested interest and strongly held opinions, and that's okay. We can't shy away from that. Change always involves that. But I think it starts with finding the common ground.
I agree with you. I just pulled a poll this morning where they are asking leaders in Sweden about how important the climate question is for you. And 48% say it's very important, 37% say it's important, 11% say it's not that important, and 4% say that it's not important at all. And I mean, if we look at this, I mean, we should be 100% at very important, but there is more than 50% saying that it's important, but not that much. What are your comments on a question like that?
Yeah, it's really interesting. And this gets to the piece around the generational divide and how critical it is we get the next generation of leaders involved in these conversations and vocal and engaged. You know, I was reading a study from the BBC last week that surveyed young people across 10 countries, and 45% of them said that climate change caused them anxiety on a daily basis. And 56% of them said they thought humanity was doomed. And so it's interesting to contrast, you know, that's scary, that level of cynicism about our ability to find a way through. And I think that's from the paralysis of sort of what they see in leadership at the moment. But, you know, when you see the level of seriousness and severity of the kind of, you know, genuine experience of the symptoms of, wow, I'm anxious, what about our planet, that younger generation have got, I think it's a really important example of something you touched on earlier with your question, Christina, which is this is why we need intergenerational leadership. We need that younger voice in conversations, challenging and pushing and counterbalancing what it is that might still be a reluctance to take this conversation as seriously as some people in the older generation may still be, you know, in terms of the views you've just quoted there.
So listen, Emil, this is one for you. You have to be taking your responsibility as a younger generation.
Yeah.
You go now.
Yeah. It's my turn, right?
It's not that. Holly, I think that we're responsible as well. I think that's what you're saying. But I think that we have big hopes when it comes to the younger generation. Definitely.
And I don't think, to your point, we should put all our hope on the younger generation. I mean, all of us have, to your point, a responsibility to lead, without a doubt. And we've got to do a better job in the roles that we play in trying to get that generation who still are sitting in those percentages who don't think it's an issue to listen and to pay attention and to understand it absolutely has consequences they should care about.
Yeah, absolutely. What's the one idea that you would like to leave the listeners to? Something that you're really passionate about that they really should do, like your speech on 1 minute. What would that be if you would choose the topic?
To be honest, it would link back to something we touched on earlier, which is the importance of sort of seeing yourself as a leader and doing something about that right here, right now. So that idea of, you know, I'm a big believer in a simple method I call 24/7-1, which is a way of sort of approaching change alongside the very busy life and demands of work and everything else as normal. Because your biggest ally when you're trying to drive change is momentum, whether that's change for yourself or whether that's change in conjunction with others. So the thing I'd say to those listening is, you know, what is it that you want to shake up about the world? What are you passionate about? What that's idea that you've been thinking about for a while, but you haven't done anything about? And how do you today take that small step within 24 hours to start? You know, it might be reaching out to someone that you know in your network who's done something like this and saying, hey, could we have a conversation? It might be putting some of your ideas down on paper, sitting somewhere with a cup of coffee and just writing things out for half an hour. Whatever it is, so small, you can't not get it done within 24 hours. Then 7 days, a slightly bigger step, then 1 month, a slightly bigger step than that. All small enough that it's sort of inexcusable that you couldn't get it done. And then take all those learnings, all those lessons, all kind of the insights you've got, the new connections, and roll that forward into the next month. And use this as an approach, month in, month out, to continue to build the new alongside the business as usual. I think it's absolutely critical as a pathway to kind of getting new innovative things to start. So that would be my big encouragement to leaders listening.
one thing that we really want to encourage here at The Switch is good initiatives, people that are doing things that make a difference. We want to give them all the sunshine we can do. So my question to you, Holly, who do you want to give some sunshine today?
Oh, it's a great question. I'm going to go for an organization, and some of you may have heard of this group, but Tech Fugees, I just think are an incredible impact-driven global organization who are all about nurturing tech solutions that are supporting the inclusion of displaced people. You know, when we look, and it's really important in the context of climate change, because we've got an extraordinary number of people that are displaced, 79.5 million people already displaced, with a projection that climate change is going to displace a lot more people. We know an extraordinary number of them live within mobile technology connected areas. So about 87% of the world are connected to 2G or 3G at least. And 50% of that 80 million are under 18. Wow. So I just think we've got an extraordinary responsibility. And what I love about this organisation is they're a gathering of people that are passionate, who've got skills and capabilities in the technology industry, or have got just know-how and a desire to help, that come together all around the world. I think it's in 20 plus countries now, and work both to create technology solutions for displaced people, but also with displaced people. And the results and the businesses and the number of refugees that's employed and the like is extraordinary. So I really just want to give them a shout out. I'm inspired by what they do. I wrote about them in the book. I couldn't encourage people more, if they feel so inclined, either to go and check them out or to do what you can to amplify their great work through your networks.
Great. So we'll make sure that you get the link to this awesome organization to make sure that we spread the word that Holly just gave sunshine to. So Holly, one of the things we really need to do is to disrupt. And who better than my colleague Graham Edge from Energy Disruptors to ask you the next disruptive question. Graham, take it away.
Finance is often inextricably linked to risk. Trailblazing leadership is often linked to courageous strategic risk-taking. Holly, how do you personally think about risk in business and in leadership? And what's a risk we can't afford not to take?
Oh, great question, G. Love that. The thing I would say we can't afford not to be taking is to not be taking any risk at all. And it sounds a little cliche, but I genuinely believe the single most important habit each and every one of us can be building right now is to be getting comfortable being uncomfortable. Nobody can get on this podcast and tell you they know exactly what the future looks like. If they think they can, they're mildly deluded. But what we do know is that the pace of change isn't slowing down anytime soon. The world's not getting any less complex. We're going to be contending with this volume of uncertainty and then some moving forward. So that's the environment we've got to develop leadership skills to thrive in. That's the world we've got to build businesses and run businesses in. And so that ability for us to get comfortable sitting in that discomfort is absolutely critical. So I in the book, share a story of spending 365 days doing a year of fear with my best friend, where every day for a whole year, we did things we were afraid of. And it is building a muscle. It's like resilience. It is a muscle where the more that you use it, the more you start to go, hey, this isn't so bad. Hey, the apocalypse didn't happen when I did that thing I'm afraid of. And so I really encourage leaders to think really intentionally about what the changes you're trying to make. There's no point just jumping out the side of a plane or going swimming with sharks just for a kick. What we're talking about here is things that are mission aligned. So you might think, okay, if I'm going to be more impactful, I've got to get comfortable speaking in front of crowds, or I've got to learn how to step outside my comfort zone and do things as a beginner for the first time, because nobody gets to stay entirely in their wheelhouse and continue to expand their influence. Whatever it is that you can see as something that's stopping you, kind of make a note. This is one of the things you can spend time off the back of listening to this call doing. Think really intentionally about how might I break that down into some baby steps? What might be some small ways I can start tackling that fear and at the same time building my capability muscle? Because as I said, the single most important thing I think we can be doing is getting comfortable being uncomfortable. So learning to sit in that risk on our own capabilities, our own ideas and opinions before we even start talking about risk in an organizational or a company sense.
Thank you, Holly, for a great finish of the first episode of The Switch. What I really take with me here, not only the energy hacks, but really what you just said, like making sure to have these conversations that could be uncomfortable, making sure that we break the silos and really put diversity into the conversation. So with that
Thank you
said,
so much for having me.
It was a pleasure having you, Holly, and continue being the awesome star you are. Your influence to the younger generation, but I would also say to the other generations is really important. So to continue being the star you are. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much for having me on The Switch.
So as one of the producers said here, it's time to recap the shit out of this conversation. And let me be clear. Oh my God, Holly Ransom, what a woman, and so many insights that she left us with. Not only that life is actually a bunch of intervals that we really need to kick off, but also that we need to run in the right direction to learn what is our why so that we can start working with the how. We need to have the uncomfortable conversations, and we need to stay in them for those long minutes where it really feels that you're outside of your comfort zone in order to solve it. And the people who need to speak together are the people who are sitting in different silos. So let's demolish the silos that we do have in the world today in order for us to really switch it on. And the people who will switch it on is not only the younger generation, even though we have great faith in them, it's also you. Yes, you. So make sure that you take your energy kick. Maybe you take a dance or you take another different way of doing it, but take a conscious decision, do something else because it's worth it. So come on, let's switch it on.